Good day, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful podcast. I can be such a pain. This lady waited for me for 10 long minutes. Typical man, always late to the party. And I've got a lot to catch up with and apologize for. And her name is Mary Beth. And how do you pronounce your surname?
Schrudder. Yeah,
Schrudder.
it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Listen to that voice. You see how clear that voice is. I love her voice. It's just absolutely beautiful. And as always, people, I have no clue in what she does, how she does it. So we're just going to go with the flow as we usually do. So Mary, just let us know what exactly you do to help people in your business as you are a success in it.
Sure. Well, thank you for asking. And yeah, so my name's Mary Beth Schrudder. I'm actually the founder of Day One Life Coaching. And I've been doing this for about 7 years, and it became my passion. Basically, the first time I ever heard of a life coach, I knew this is for me. I was in corporate. I was in the corporate world, right? And I was kind of depressed. I didn't like my life. That led to a lot of drinking. I definitely was addicted to alcohol. I had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. So something I love to do in my coaching is help people heal through addictions. So the main things are healing through alcohol, and helping with that relationship that they have if they have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And toxic relationships is a big one. I get a lot of people who are involved in that. And then, of course, their relationship with themselves. So sometimes people come to me just because they can't figure out what they want to do for their life purpose, their career, right?
Okay.
Sometimes they're depressed and anxious and they feel stuck in life. So I help them, get unstuck. Is that a word? Unstuck.
Yeah, it's descriptive enough. So
and then, yeah, so I've helped people through divorce. Everything that I teach is something that I've gone through myself. And I'm a spiritual life coach. So there's a little spiritual twist to everything I do. I was diagnosed in the past with ADHD, OCD, anxiety, depression. I'm on 0 medication. So I know that we can, with techniques, we can manage our emotions. We can manage our thoughts. We can get out ahead of this and live our best life. It just takes some practice. It takes really going out of our way each day and maintaining it. Just like if we go to the gym, we can't be like, all right, got my perfect body now. I'm done. I'm finished. We got to keep going back and maintaining this. It's daily work, right? There's always maintenance involved. And a lot of what I teach, like I said, is spiritual. So law of attraction is huge. I don't know are you into that? Law of attraction?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, but I'm a Buddhist, to be honest. So
okay, cool. I'm into a lot of that Buddhist beliefs and practices. I'm not attached to alcohol anymore. I'm not attached to caffeine anymore. I've let go of all my attachments.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, because you're now in a position to help so many people because of your experiences. So, okay, so let's just see where you're coming from, because you said that you can help people when it comes to addiction, alcohol, drugs, divorce. That's quite expansive. So let's just go right back where you had some serious problems in your life, where things were quite in despair, which will help listeners understand, okay, she feels me. So just give us one circumstance.
So I'm going to go back just to say for everybody, the first 7 years of our life are so important, right? And yes. I had a lot of childhood trauma. My parents got divorced when I was 5. I had the abandonment wound. My father was absent. That caused a lot of the anxiety. I think it triggered a lot of the stuff in me, actually, because our thoughts really affect, with the law of attraction, this is like kind of the basic premise too, is our thoughts and our feelings really affect our energy and how we attract, and we can easily get stuck, as you know, in that negative thought loop or overthinking. So I definitely had the tendency for that from straight after my parents were divorced. I started to really get this horrible anxiety and separation anxiety that I just lived with. It was just, this was back in the 70s. Okay. I'm 50. So you gotta imagine and go back of the 70s, they weren't like, oh, let's go to therapy. It was just like, deal with it. That's just how life was. So I think like what's interesting is the first time I ever tried alcohol, I was kind of only 11 years old. I was on vacation, and that's crazy. I know I didn't start regularly drinking at 11, but I was on vacation with a girlfriend and her family, and they were pretty lenient, and they had all this alcohol set out on the counter. And I was like, well, we both were like, well, let's try it. So we just kind of mixed some stuff together. And I can tell you, it was the first time in my life I felt no anxiety and no OCD. My OCD came in the form of checking. I was a checker, check, always.
Really?
Yeah. That's the weirdest one to me. So I'm always like checking things and making sure. It's kind of like a mistrust of life. Sorry, that's my dog in the background.
That's cool. I think the dog is checking.
He's sitting there on the couch right there, and he's a little chihuahua. They do that. They just do that little noise. So yeah, he's a checker. So essentially, I just was like, wow, this is the answer. This is the answer to all of my issues, alcohol, because I had never felt such relief from social anxiety, any type of anxiety. I just loved that feeling of being uninhibited and carefree the first time in my life. Like I said, I didn't become a regular drinker, but that definitely planted the seed and was a huge red flag. And there's a lot of connection with ADHD and addiction. So, because it's all like this dopamine, if you have ADHD, you have a lot of dopamine seeking behaviors, impulse control issues. So like I have the addictive personality. It wasn't just alcohol. It was all the addictions, like toxic relationships. Like the more dramatic it was, the more I was into it. Right. Like, cause that's a dopamine hit when we're having those dramatic, toxic up and down. So I help people a lot with getting out of those, because it's not the way that we really want to be. We don't really want to be in a toxic relationship, and we need to learn how to be content and happy in a healthy relationship where you're uplifting each other and you're best friends, not enemies, right? So just my life was as a single mom. I was actually married for some time, but got out of that because it was toxic. And I left when my son was only 3, and he's 21 now. So I've been out of this for a long time and just really spent all these years working on myself. I've always been a spiritual seeker and someone who's into personal development and self-development, just really into these things since as long as I can remember. So essentially just getting out of this darkness myself and learning all of these techniques on how to manage your emotions and realizing, wow, we don't really need all these medications. And I can tell you a lot of my clients, 100% of my clients are no longer on medication, which I'm not a doctor. I do not tell them to get off of medication, but they do kind of after working with me. Again, I'm sorry about my dog. He's never done it for this long period of time. But they do start to realize that, man, a lot of this we can manage. And it takes, instead of self-medicating with substances like alcohol or caffeine, which definitely was affecting my central nervous system. That's why I had to let that go. Because look at me. I got enough energy. I don't need...
You definitely have enough energy.
I don't need caffeine.
We can hear it, listeners. We can hear that, can't we? For sure.
Well, and I drank caffeine for... I started that when I was like 10 years old. I know my mom got remarried when I was 10, and my stepdad was like, hey, do you want some coffee? You want to be my coffee buddy? And he made me coffee with all the sugar, which is also horrible if you have ADHD. And so I started drinking that when I was 10 years old. And I didn't even know life without being caffeinated, which was ridiculous with my energy level to also add caffeine and sugar on top of that.
So hold on a minute. Were you always like this? Was like you was pure energy?
Yes.
You was always, since you can remember.
Yes. And my mom called me like a social butterfly. I was just always needed to be doing stuff. Like I got one speed and it's fast. Wow.
And was any of your mother and father similar? Did you get that trait, or was it?
So my mom's full Italian, so some of it I think is just in cultural, like because we are pretty passionate people in general. And
Mhm.
um my dad actually, no, he's exact opposite.
Is
Um
it?
yeah, well, he was part of the childhood trauma. He was very abused by his father.
Okay.
My grandfather actually died of cirrhosis of the liver when my mom was pregnant with me because of drinking alcohol, and I never met him. So he was very abusive to my dad. So my dad ended up being not that he wasn't abusive in that way. He was just emotionally absent and very quiet.
Mm,
I think that he felt like he didn't want to be like his dad, so he was kind of just retreated in a way, and he
I hear
wasn't
you.
really around.
Yeah.
So he was just very quiet. So he couldn't be more opposite than I am when it comes to personality and
Mm.
energy level.
No, I can imagine for sure. So you've always had this energy, and obviously you've always had a way about you that you had to experiment, push the boundaries. You had that kind of trait, hence the coffee, the drinking and everything else that was coming along. You said you had ADHD. You had the ADHD, and from an ADHD point of view, what traits were shown in your life when it comes to ADHD? What kind of things that you were showing, and how were you reacting, etc.?
Well, from what I know scientifically, if you have ADHD, you have inadequate dopamine production. So, like I said earlier, those dopamine seeking behaviors. So for me, it was the toxic relationships, alcohol, caffeine. I smoked cigarettes for a while in my life. It's just there's something about that felt like it grounded me. We can make excuses for anything, right? But
Mhm.
um, yeah, so basically a lot of impulse control, food addiction. I got addicted to sugar. Like I feel like what we call an addictive personality
Mhm.
could be a lot of these our brains are different.
Okay.
I have a cool story to tell you about alcohol that was kind of a turning point.
Okay. Go on.
So there is a documentary that one of my friends saw called One Little Pill, One Little
Mhm.
Pill.
Mhm.
And it's narrated by a woman named Claudia Christian. She's actually an actress, and it's all about this method called the Sinclair method, which is a way that people have been using successfully to cure their alcohol addiction.
Okay.
And this was before I had my spiritual transformation, my energetic shift, whatever you call it. So I was like, I'm going to try that because it sounded easy. Because all you do is you take this one pill, which is called naltrexone. And naltrexone is actually prescribed for food addiction and alcohol addiction. I mean, it's not really prescribed for alcohol addiction, but food addiction is really big here in the States. But what it does, it's an opiate blocker. Some people call it an opioid blocker. And what
Okay.
that does is it blocks the reward center in your brain.
Okay.
So you take a pill like an hour before you have a glass of wine or whatever your drink might be,
Okay.
before you imbibe, and you wait an hour, and since it blocks the reward centers, you don't get that same dopamine hit. So it's easy for you to only have one drink, because my problem was moderation, because I get that huge reward. Our
Yeah.
brains, if you're an addict, your brains are just really so much more rewarded than a normal, we'll call it normal brain,
Mhm.
typical brain. So I was like, wow, this is really weird. I actually hated it so much because I was like, what's the point of drinking? This is how normal brains are. Like, as you could tell you were drunk, but it wasn't fun because it blocked that pleasure center. And then it just was a turning point in this way, because it made me realize there's nothing special about alcohol, really. It's my brain. It is my freaking brain that's making this so amazing of an experience,
Mhm.
right? And alcohol really didn't have this power over me that I thought it did.
Mhm.
So that was just a really weird thing. I never really went that direction and took the pills to moderate my drinking, because it was not a fun experience for me. I drank because I liked the feeling of it, right? I liked the drunk, buzzy feeling. So it took all the pleasure away. But
Mhm.
there are many people who use this Sinclair method, and every time before they drink, they'll take one of these pills and it stops them from having, they might have 1 or 2 drinks instead of the bingey type personalities that like a lot of our addictive brains have. And by the way, fun fact, only about 25% of people of the population in general has that turn off, like where they can just have 1 cookie or 1 drink and then they're good. Like it's 70s. This is very common. 75% of people, when they want the pleasure seeking, they continue like one more. I don't want just 1 cookie. I want the whole sleeve.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I'm one of those people. But my addiction was Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I promised myself I'll only eat half a tub, and that was enough. And I'd end up eating the whole lot for dinner.
Yeah, it's a dopamine, because it's just the way our brains work. You know, we just it's like, well, it's good, so we want more, and it makes sense. Like, of course, who doesn't? But some people have a dial. Like they can moderate up and down like a dial. And for me, abstinence works amazing because I'm an extremist. So I'm all or nothing. So like I have a switch, turn off, turn on. If I get started on something, like it would not be good for me to break open a bottle of wine, right? Because I'm not gonna have that dial where I can just dial it down a little bit. I'm all in or I'm all
out. And I'm the same way, totally. And that's how I dealt with it. And people will be listening to who know me in this podcast saying, thinking, what you're talking about, Eli, you know, you've never been addicted or had a problem to control this, that, and the other. But the way I work, I'll tell you a bit of a story. When I was young, I had someone that gave me some alcohol, and it was very sweet, and I love sweet things.
Yeah.
And when I had the peach snaps, I love the peach snaps. And I said to the friend at a club, I said, give me another one, please. And I had the second one, and I swigged it right back. And I said, give me the third one. And I swigged it right back. So within 1 minute, I had 3. And I said, I will never have that again. And they go, why? You loved it. I said, because I love it too much. And
That's
I know
why.
what I'm like. And I walked away from it. So I made sure I had the 3, because I knew I loved this too much. But I knew once I had the third one, that will be it for the rest of my life. And so, yes, I do have an addictive personality. It just never shows because I know my limits and I take responsibility for it. And then I move on. So I understand what she's talking about. Now, you said something about, you said in your brain, it was a situation where you said, no, it's my brain that's doing this. It's not really the alcohol. So you learned to take responsibility for whatever you were doing. And I think that's where the power is. And see, because what people do, they blame whatever they're taking. And if you're blaming for whatever you're taking, it ain't your fault, right? So you can't help yourself. But if you put the responsibility on yourself, you're then in power. Why? Because, well, if it's your fault or if you can do something about it, then you can. You can do something about it. So when did you learn this skill? What happened for you to learn this skill way back in the days? Something must have happened where you just thought, aha, and you then realize, taking responsibility is a good thing. What happened?
Well, the more I learned about, back to the law of attraction, the more I learned about law of attraction, how everything's energy and how much more control over our day we actually have, and that I was giving away so much of my power and I wasn't setting myself up for success. So I knew how important our thoughts are, our feelings are, and that's going to put out the energy into the world where we attract things. So I'd been learning about law of attraction since 2006. So it's just, but I didn't really get into it until about like 10 years ago. And that's when I really started to realize, wow, I'm really sabotaging myself. So that's when I started taking accountability, because I knew how important it was to feel as high vibing, to raise your vibration as much as you can each day. And each day's a new start. So if you have a bad day, it's okay. Your whole vibe resets overnight, and you start out, as long as you don't start thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same feelings, just going back to the negative thought loops, our old subconscious programming. Most people are living on autopilot, right? They're just doing all the same stuff thinking the same thoughts. A lot of that stuff's negative. And then they're like, well, why isn't my life changing? Well, their life's not changing because they're doing the same stuff, different day, you know? So really learning about how important it is that our feelings and what we're putting out into the universe and how it's going to affect your whole day, so we can deliberately create our day, so we can intentionally have a better day instead of living by default. That's when I really started to take accountability, and I started to kind of play games with it and test it and get like evidence, like, okay, if I think these thoughts and feel these thoughts, let's see how my day goes. And like it got to the point where I couldn't deny it. I couldn't deny it at all. Like I just had to admit I've been sabotaging myself, and alcohol is a lower vibrational substance. So it started to affect my sleep. And you know how important our sleep is. It didn't really, I got away with it through until my 40s. It really started to affect my sleep. And a lot of people don't realize, here's the science behind it. Alcohol is a depressant. Our body does a very normal thing. What it's supposed to do is create stimulants to counteract the depressant. That's what your body's supposed to do.
Yes.
So after your fourth or fifth, I mean, not after your fourth drink. I'm sorry. After the 4 or 5 hours after your last drink, those depressants are pretty worn off, and all you're left with is the stimulants. So I would be up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, with my mind racing, anxiety out the window, just crazy anxiety. And it's because that depressant was no longer in my system, but the stimulants that my body created were. So that's all I could feel was the stimulants. And that happens to a lot of people. They don't know why they're up at 3 a.m. They don't make the connection that it's the alcohol that's creating it. And moderation does quit working, because that started to happen even if I only had 1 glass of wine or 2 glasses. Red wine was my thing. So I'd have 1 glass of wine and it would still be the same, just anxiety, just like if I had a whole bottle of wine. And that's because our body creates the amount of stimulants during your first drink. It doesn't know if you're going to stop at 1. And over time, your body just starts creating more and more stimulants. So moderation doesn't even work. I just knew I'm going to wake up with anxiety in the middle of the night, even if I only have 1 glass. So that was not getting enough sleep, was lowering my vibration, sabotaging my next day, right? I wanted to start setting my days up for success. There's a lot of things that help too, with like meditation. Breath work is so important for me, because I'm not the best at quieting this mind. So, but I am good at focusing on one thing. Do you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I'm just giving him credit for this. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's fantastic. Everyone should follow him. But he actually was the one who said meditation doesn't mean your mind's completely quiet, which is what I was going for, which was too hard for me. So I would just be like, well, I'm not going to try because I can't do that. It's focusing on one thing. And that one thing could be your breath. It could be, you could just be put on a guided meditation on YouTube. There's free ones all over the place. You could listen to your air conditioning. So many things. You could just be out in nature and have a walking meditation and just focus on the things that you're seeing out in nature. It doesn't mean your mind has to be perfectly clear. So take that stress off of yourself, especially if you have ADHD, racing thoughts, anxiety, things like that. Let go of that stress, because even if it's only a few minutes where you get your mind quiet and calm, that's worth it. Like it's so important to do that every day. And your whole day is going to be so much calmer. You'll be able to be present and grounded. Being grounded is super important.
Does that work for everybody, or do particular things work for particular people?
I think particular things work for particular people, because if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. I think it would work for everybody who did practice, but if you're not into it, you want to find something that you know that you're going to do. Like when I quit drinking alcohol, for instance, you do need to replace your unhealthy habits with a good habit. Because you're going to have this extra time in your day, and you're going to be like, what do I do with myself? Like, I'll go paint the mailbox, and like, what do you do? So I had all this extra time when I quit drinking, because I would go to happy hour that's what we call it. You guys call it happy hour?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd go to happy hour like every day with my friends after work. I felt like I deserve this. This is my reward, because like I said, I was in the corporate world back then, and I felt like I deserved this. And it was actually funny because I'm actually punishing myself, but I was calling it a reward. But so we would go every single day. So to replace that, that void that I felt, like I went to the gym, because a lot of addiction, what are we doing? We're trying to fill a void. There's something empty in us. We want to numb ourselves. We want to escape reality. There's so many reasons why people get addicted. Like, I was a really sensitive child. So I think that just being sensitive to energies around you, I've had a lot of weird psychic experiences and paranormal experiences in my life. That makes you want to self-medicate. Just being someone who can like see into other realm. It's freaky, right? So especially as a kid, that makes you want to numb out big time. So I started going to the gym. That's what I decided to do, because instead of happy hour, I just was like, well, I'm going to go work on my body. A lot of my coaching's mind, body, spirit. We want to holistically heal ourselves. We don't want to be out of balance. So I'm like, I'm going to work on my body. I've been damaging my body all these years, 30 years of drinking. So
that's a long time.
That's a long career of drinking. Like, well, you heard I started young, but so you want to find something that you love, that you can stick to replace these other habits, because you're going to have a void at first. I do encourage people to learn about the law of attraction so that you can realize that it's and don't be scared of it, that your thoughts and your feelings are creating things. Love it. Love that you can, wow, I have this ability to really change my life. That if I change my thoughts and change my feelings and learn to manage my emotions, and like you said, take accountability for my behaviors, because I didn't realize how many things I was doing in my life that was bringing me down, including my diet. I mean, we got to get back to eating real food, especially if you're neurodivergent. Sugar, caffeine, like we talked about earlier, all of these things affect your brain so much more. I'm not going to say it causes anything, but it makes things worse.
Yeah, it does. The sugar especially, because it's a poison.
It is a poison. I'm glad you said that. I didn't want to say it, but it's true.
No, it's a poison, and a lot of people don't understand it because of what they do to the sugar. They take all the goodness out of it and leave you the rubbish, basically. And it's basically a poison, which is very sad. Which is hence why I gave it up 2 months ago.
Nice, good job. Me too. I gave it up a while back, but it changed me a lot, for sure.
I'm telling you, and your taste buds are just amazing. After just about 2 to 4 weeks, everything tastes even better than before. To the point is when I started eating my breakfast again, because I eat a lot of whole grain. I actually was eating the whole grain. I thought, oh my God, this tastes sweet. Because what happens is, and you already know this, your taste buds change completely and go back to normally. So you tend not to need salt or sugar, because there's sweetness in a lot of things you eat. Anyway,
eat real food. Get back to nature.
Oh, I'm telling you, but it's difficult, because you do. I love my tiramisu, for instance. I love tiramisu and things like that. So I will be honest, listeners. I do have my cheat days, and I have once a month. Just a cheat day. I think
that's healthy, because that's going to keep you on track, because not everybody can be extreme like me, and I never would teach that or expect that from anybody, but if you do tend to be bingy, it could backfire on you to have a cheat day, because like for me, I can't do that, because like I was a creme brulee, which creme brulee was I love creme brulee.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And fudgy brownies. I love brownies. Like I would make my son some brownies.
You can have
the whole tray.
Yeah, no, have the brownie. That's yours. Yeah. Creme brulee, I'll give that all to me. I'll have that all day long. There's no two ways about it.
I can't do that. Like, I'm going to eat the whole thing, and I'm going to start craving sugar the next 3 days, because we crave what we eat. And so I would start to, like, my little addict brain, I would just get uncontrollable cravings. But since I don't eat sugar anymore, I don't crave it. Just like, hey, I don't do cocaine, so I don't crave cocaine. You know what I mean? It's not in my system.
Okay, so let's just talk quickly about what was the lowest part of your life. I mean, the worst, and you think, oh my God, I really don't want to speak about this. What was the lowest part of your life?
I think when I was trying to quit, like, because I always had told myself, and I think a lot of us do this, we're in denial, right? That's like part one of addiction, stage one. Like, you just don't know. You're like thinking, I can quit anytime. Like, I've got control over this. Trying to quit, knowing I'm super intelligent and logical, rational person, yet I still couldn't quit. Like, just, like, I was like, what in the world? And it just made me feel like such a loser. But like, that's kind of the definition of addiction, is there's like something negative it's something is affecting your life in a negative way, but you still can't quit. Like that's what addiction is. Like, you're still doing it, even though, I mean, it could be pornography. It could be, because like that affects a lot of families, pornography addiction, like that could destroy a family. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's very common. Shopping addiction, gambling, that destroys people financially, obviously. Of course, alcohol and drugs, but there's also overthinking and the negative thinking, those negative thought loops, because that creates these limiting beliefs that get stuck and they block us from moving forward in life and really building success. So those are actually addictions, our thoughts, like OCD thoughts. Those are, and I'm saying this because I've been there and I've been able to manage them now. OCD thoughts are addictions, because one thought leads to, and it's an energetic thing. One thought leads to a similar thought. And, you get stuck in these same things. You gotta learn how to manage those, or else you just keep getting stuck in those obsessive compulsive thoughts. And you can change it. You absolutely can. I am proof of it.
Right. So you said the hardest, the most difficult time was when you're trying to get off the addiction.
Yeah, it was like a dark night of the soul experience. Like, I just remember crying and praying and just being like, why can't I quit? And like, then I would end up trying to, I'll do, what was it? Organic wine, or I'll try beer. You try compromising with yourself and, trying all these different things, but it always would lead to the same thing. Like, even if I could moderate 20 times in a row, that 21st time, I'm going to get hammered, and I'm going to be like, just back at, like, I never even quit or never even was moderating. And it's just awful with the hangover, with the shame and guilt is like such a huge part of addiction. Like, just this blame, shame, and guilt, horrible thing that I just couldn't get out of that. And I was very much beating myself up every day. And it was just such a low feeling, such a horribly low feeling to, really want to quit, and being like, why in the world am I doing this to myself? Because I'd already recognized how much alcohol was bringing me down. So why do I continue to imbibe, right? Why am I doing this? And it was just such a feeling of being out of control, not trusting myself. I think this is important to say. I was running 2 businesses. I was completely functional.
Okay.
Nobody would have thought anything. Like, it was, maybe if they partied with me, they go, oh, she likes to drink, but nothing bad happened. I didn't have a rock bottom. And that's what I want to encourage your listeners, is you don't have to have a rock bottom to change your life, to improve your life. Like I said, I knew how important it was to feel good and how much it affects everything in life, our energy and everything, and how we attract. And my life has done a complete 180 since I let go of alcohol. Like I attract better clients. My business has grown in amazing ways. Before, everything was kind of, inching along, and just, it was okay, but now that I've shifted my energy, I've changed my identity completely. I'm just, that's what you need. You need an energetic shift. You can no longer be that person. Definitely. Your identity has to change. I had to close that window personally. Like, I'm no longer that person that's going to order red wine every night. Like, that's just not who I am anymore. I'm not an AA person. Like, AA, I tried going there.
Well, I'll tell you what, obviously you got yourself out of the hole, and you did so in a massive way, but what was that turning point? Let's show the listeners what was enough, and you made that change. What
Just
was
that
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 time?
that there was one specific night that I call the dark night of the soul, that I just couldn't do it anymore, and I prayed, and I had this energetic shift. Like, honestly, just I think it was the prayer, and everything shifted, and I could feel it. I could feel it. Like, before, I didn't trust myself, and at this moment, I can tell you, I knew that 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 I knew I was done. I felt this shift, and that was 5 years ago on September 8th. So this, just 5 years ago, little over this month. And so I just completely was done, and I knew I was never going to go back.
Hmm.
It was like a
Just,
spiritual experience. That's why I call it.
I get you. I get you. I get you. But just think around about that time, within a week of that time, maybe a succession of things happened. Maybe 2 or 3 things happened, and then you thought enough was enough. Something must have happened that week that thought, I just can't do this again. Was there?
Well, my 45th birthday, I got pretty drunk, and felt like total dog crap for 3 days, and then that 3 days after that is when I quit. So like I just could no longer stand being in that low vibration, because I just knew how important it was to feel good. So I was like, I'm not doing this to myself anymore. I am a life coach. I am not living in integrity, right? Like, like, how am I teaching other people to live their best lives when I'm not doing it myself? And that was a huge thing to keep me accountable. It's like, I have to be someone who practices what they preach. And at that point, I realized I had finally acknowledged that alcohol was bringing me down so much. So I had to, quit. Like, I knew, like, I couldn't hide it from myself anymore. Denial was over. So I couldn't keep it in my life because I was out of denial.
So I suppose it didn't help when you was 45. You hit 45 and you thought, "Oh my
That's
God,
a catalyst, isn't it?
I'm getting." And age is always a thing that helps you make some changes.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it was the age as well as you being drunk for 3 days that was, well, God, it's enough. I'm getting older now, and blah,
And
blah.
you're right. It was a 3-day binge because I didn't stop drinking.
That's right.
I kept going because I was like, oh, I don't feel good. And then you get to that point where, and you probably have done this, everybody I feel has figured out the hair of the dog, right? So you have the way to feel better the next day is to have a drink in the morning, which is a horrible, vicious cycle. But once you know that, you can't unknow it. Okay. Oh, I do remember a really down loser moment. So it was during those 3 days, and I actually went to the grocery store in the morning. I didn't have any alcohol in my house. That was my way of stopping myself, right? I didn't have like a wine thing. I didn't keep wine here. I went to the grocery store like as soon as it opened, like at like 7 a.m. or something. And I just was shaking because I had all that anxiety from drinking too much the night before. I didn't have anything to calm myself down. So I'm like, I'm going to go get, and it was like a Thursday or something, Yeah. And I go to the grocery store and I buy a bottle of wine, a couple bottles of wine, and a couple gift bags. Like, it was for me, but I was so embarrassed that I'm there that early in the morning buying wine. I'm just like trying to play it off to the people who work there that I'm just like getting, I'm going to a party later, right? So I just felt like such a loser just having to even drive there and get that. But I had so much anxiety. My skin was crawling. I was shaking. And that was probably a huge catalyst. I've never told anybody that before. So there you go. Exclusive.
But there you go. And so with that, you've gone through so much life experience. You're able to work with the clients in such a way and have that empathy and that understanding because you've had to live it yourself. Mm-hmm. So when you have a client and they come to you, and let's say, for instance, they say they're addicted, to porn, and it's affecting their relationship with their partner. How do you feel when it comes to interacting with them? How do you deal with that one-to-one? Where do you start from when you're trying to deal with their issue? What's your thought process?
That's a great question. And it's so interesting because when I first started life coaching, which was only 7 years ago, I was like thinking, okay, I'm going to do this during my first session. This is what we're going to talk about in the second. I really thought it could be that way because that's kind of how we were taught. And it's not like that at all. Everybody's so different. And it really depends on their background and what they need and their age and life experience. And like currently I have 14-year-old all the way up to a 56-year-old. That just happens to be what it is currently. So can you imagine I have to do different things for these different people and everybody's got different situations. So it's very individualized, very customized. And it really, the one-on-one is the best, obviously, because a lot of this is people's limiting beliefs and subconscious programming. The more vulnerable they are with me, the more they will open up. Like pornography, that can be an embarrassing topic. But the more somebody's opens up with me, what their triggers are, just about their life, their personal life, the more I can help them. Because a lot of this is, okay, well, what are your triggers? Okay, we got to pause, we got to analyze, we got to examine. But if they don't tell me, what's really going on, exactly.
They've got to say you're the doctor, and if they don't tell you what's really going on, then you can't diagnose. Help them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very individual and it depends person to person. And one-on-one is obviously the most valuable thing. And then being open with me, like, I mean, all of my clients have had huge success and making huge changes in their lives. Does that mean any of them have relapsed? I don't know. They haven't told me if they have, but I assume they might relapse, but they have the tools. Like I like to give clients these tools. They can use practical tools. They can start applying session 1. And that they'll have forever, because this is knowledge that once you know it, you can't unknow it. Like your mind is expanded, That's so I like to say my sessions expand people's minds, raise their vibration. And like when we all have this vibrational set point, right? So the more you do these sessions and expand your mind, the more you're raising that set point, and you're never going to go back down to that. I mean, you might have a bad day, because we all do. We all have bad days. I have bad days. But you're always going to know how to get back to your highest set point, right? So yeah. So you have a new set point when you do coaching. I mean, as long as you have a good coach, I'm not saying it has to be me, but as long as you have that guidance, then you know how to get back, back to good. You're not stuck, and that's what a lot of people do. They dwell. If they backslide or something, they're like, oh, now this means I'm done for, no, it's okay. And forgive yourself. Let go of the blame, shame, and guilt, because that vibration is no good. You got to forgive yourself quickly, get right back on track.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of people fall down, is the lack of forgiveness for themselves. And that is a big problem. But so how do you help people in general? Do you go beyond the one-to-one sessions? Do you do group sessions? Do you do online sessions? Do you do large group sessions? I mean, what is the services that you offer?
So I do have group coaching too, but I definitely prefer the one-on-one, because I just know it's more helpful. Yes. My sessions are available for anyone as long as you speak English. They're over Zoom, so they're done remotely, so it doesn't matter where you live. I just only speak English, so that's the thing.
Not Italian?
No, I don't. I wish I did. Even my mom, she just only knew a few words, so that I didn't get to learn.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So my grandmother knew some Italian, but anyway, so yeah, I love doing the one-on-one Zoom sessions. I do offer some group. Those are also online. I do some group in person too, but that's in my area. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm on every platform. So are you? Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I got 2 Facebook, my business page, my personal page. I've got a YouTube channel, Spiritual Transformation with Mary Beth. And I was doing interviews for a while. Right now I'm on a pause to be a guest to spread my message more. But yeah, I do have that. And there's a lot of great interviews if anyone wants to check that out. So yeah, follow me. I give a lot of free advice every day for people who maybe you can't afford coaching, just following people who are already where you want to be and listening to them is a huge step. Follow those people. Our diet isn't only like what we eat in the day. It's also what are we watching. So watch positive messaging, follow role models. People are where you want to be. And maybe that just means they have the job you want. Start following that person and figure out what they did, because they once weren't in that position and now they are. So follow those steps.
They had to be on a journey too, and you're totally right with that. And with that said, unfortunately, we'll have to stop with the line in the sand, and we'll have to go, unfortunately. But Mary, how can people contact you so they can have that one-to-one or online session with you, or group, either?
So day1lifecoaching.com is my website, DAYONE lifecoaching.com. That's my website. And then you can also find me, Mary Beth Schrudder, SCHRUDDER, on any platform. And on Instagram, you could type in Day One Life Coaching, and I'm the one, I think there's two of us, but I'm the one that's verified with the blue check mark. So make sure you follow me. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and follow me anywhere you find me.
Wow, that's amazing. And what I will do, as always, I will put the information down there so you can just click away, copy and paste, and you'll be able to do a one-to-one or ask questions at least with her. And as you can see, she has the life experience to give you the information that you need and then take it from there. In the meantime, unfortunately, we have to go. And Mary, thank you for sharing your precious time with us. Thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I had fun.
It was a pleasure. And take care, listeners. And we shall speak very soon. In the meantime, sayonara.